Bienvenida mi gente, ¿cómo están? ¿Cómo se encuentran? Muchas gracias por acompañarnos aquí en el Toma Todito Show. Welcome back everybody. Thank you for tuning in once again to the Toma Todito Show. And I'm excited to dive in to today's episode so we could try to make some sense as to the excitement and the hype that's building within the lightweight division in the UFC. The UFC's lightweight division has had a long, storied past of both entertainment, providing entertainment to all of us, and some of the top-notch competition. We've had some of the most amazing fights that have taken place in that division. You've had the who's who of fighters that have either competed within that division, that have moved down from that division, that have come up from other weight divisions to compete in there, and fighters that have moved up from that division to compete at welterweight or middleweight divisions. Right now, with the recent announcement that took place in this past October at the conclusion of the Khabib versus Justin Gaethje matchup, Khabib ends up shocking the world. Very emotional announcement that he makes at the conclusion of the fight. As he's doing his post-fight interview inside the octagon and ends up stepping away. He announces his retirement and steps away. Very emotional, of course, with the recent passing of his father. It basically shook and sent waves throughout the lightweight division. It basically ended up sending chum, just throwing blood into the waters, and shark-infested waters at that. And you got all kinds of sharks just looking to make their claim and take their bite towards conquering that throne and being the one, being the man, being the new king of that division. You have the who's who of contenders within that division right now. Top-notch talent, and one addition to the UFC in Michael Chandler, who ended up departing Bellator earlier this year after completing his contract upon finishing up Benson Henderson. He ends up defeating Benson Henderson and begins to test the market. Everybody thought he was going to the One Championship, which is the biggest promotion throughout Asia, and he ends up coming over to the UFC. And upon those news happening, basically Dana White ended up telling the entire lightweight division, just step aside. Michael Chandler's walking through, and ended up telling them to make weight, get fight ready, as he was going to be the alternate in case Khabib and Justin Gaethje, one of them failed to make weight. Then Michael Chandler was going to step in, took the trip to Fight Island over in Abu Dhabi, and he was there. He made weight like a true professional, and he was ready to step in. Luckily for us, we got to see Khabib make weight. We got to see Justin make weight, and we got to see that unification bout. Justin bringing the interim title, and Khabib obviously with the main championship at that division. He ends up making short work of Justin Gaethje. Although Justin Gaethje, I think if that fight would have gone an additional round, Justin Gaethje was starting to do some real damage to Khabib's leg, and the fight possibly would have turned out a little bit differently. Nonetheless, Khabib basically turned the switch on, said, all right, I'm done playing, and took the game to the ground, the fight to the ground, and ended the night. Khabib ends up retiring, ends up stepping away. Nonetheless, this is what we know to date. As of a few days ago, Khabib ends up sending this social media post with just real brief, and he says, see you soon, and then at Dana White, right? He ends up sending this message towards Dana White. So, of course, a lot of speculation starts coming out, whether he's coming back. Did he really retire? Did he not mean it? Was he just emotional and ended up making the decision out of emotion and still high from the adrenaline? Or is he really going to take a different type of role within the UFC and steps away from the sport? We don't know. That tweet or that message that he ended up sending, Instagram post that he ended up doing, obviously started getting waves and traction. Nonetheless, the lightweight division is at an all-time high, and we have a bunch of names ready to fight. We know that Tony Ferguson has been exchanging barbs and comments and insults back and forth between him and Michael Chandler, who's the new addition to the UFC. Michael Chandler's been looking to get in there with Justin Gaethje, with Dustin Poirier, even as far as calling out McGregor, and Tony Ferguson. He just wants to prove himself, and he's ready to fight. He came ready to get in there and show what he's got and what he's bringing to the table. that fight's not going to happen. Tony Ferguson is set to take on Charles Oliveira at UFC 256 coming up in December. Conor McGregor and Dustin Poirier end up signing the contract, and they're going to have their long-awaited rematch take place in January of 2021. Of course, that's putting McGregor at a full year layoff, right? It's pretty much a year earlier this year, I believe. The date was January 18th when he ended up fighting Cowboy. So this is going to be a full year layoff for Conor McGregor. Dustin Poirier also has had several months that he's been out of the octagon. That's the long-awaited rematch, and hopefully that takes place. Who does that leave in the realm of the lightweight division without opponents? Michael Chandler, of course. Justin Gaethje coming off the loss to Khabib. He should be able to be ready within a few months and make his run at the throne again. You have Rafael dos Anjos, who just defeated Paul Felder. Paul Felder ends up renewing his contract with the UFC, so he's another live dog in that division. You have Dan Hooker, who still doesn't have an opponent and has been standing by. And then to close out the top 10 in the rankings for the UFC, you have Al Iaquinta, you have Kevin Lee, you have Diego Ferreira. So you have some really good opponents there now. In my opinion, if you're trying to shoot Michael Chandler up the ranks, up the ladder, and get him as a stand-in for the Khabib-Justin Gaethje fight, the only fight that makes sense in my eyes right now being that Poirier and McGregor are tied up already in a contract, and they're set to fight. Ferguson already has an opponent in Charles Oliveira, who's up in the ranks as well. The only other opponent would be, in my eyes, it has to be one of three people: Justin Gaethje, Rafael dos Anjos, or Dan Hooker. And if it was my matchmaking to take place, obviously Michael Chandler, Justin Gaethje would have to be the ones to fight next, and then I would want to see Rafael dos Anjos and Dan Hooker. I think that would be two amazing fights, and hopefully they get added for 257 or around those dates, so we could actually see this lightweight division start clearing the waters a little bit and start figuring out who's going to be making the next run at that throne. Of course, with the recent message that Khabib sent, if he is to come back, you got yourself either Conor looking, if he pulls off the victory against Dustin Poirier, he's looking for the rematch with Khabib. If Poirier ends up beating McGregor, I don't see him getting right back in there with Khabib, or at least the UFC not lining him up with Khabib, not after that win. But they would probably line him up with the winner of Ferguson and Charles Oliveira, or if we had another big setup like Michael Chandler and Justin Gaethje, then the winner of the McGregor fight I would see going against the winner of that fight. And of course, the ultimate winner facing Khabib, getting the ultimate price of stepping in the octagon with Khabib. So it's just bloody waters, shark-infested waters in that lightweight division right now. Beyond exciting, and it's been going on for the last couple years, and it seems like it's at an all-time high right now, and one where the light is shining really bright on the lightweight division in the UFC. So keep your eyes open for that. Ferguson's up next with Charles Oliveira in the next few weeks. So that's the first one that's going to start figuring out and breaking up some of that smoke, some of that cloud right now in the lightweight division. Whoever wins that, then we know that there's a live dog there for another big name and lining himself back up to make a run at that throne. So keep your eyes open on that. Thank you guys again for tuning in, and we'll talk soon. Take care.